Who can we credit for the true dramedy fusion of this show? Brett Goldstein as writer or Bill Lawrence as executive producer?
Jason Segel and Harrison Ford are the headliners, but is the B cast what we really love?
Red and Red Real Reviews contemplates the inevitable big changes of life with Shrinking, Season 3 on Apple TV. I knew within the first 5 minutes I was going to hate it, but then it was so bad. Ugh.
Nobody wants this. Like
Literally nobody wants this.
Internet's gonna get mad at me for this one. There's no fat L.
Duty, which I can't say without laughing. Duty, like I'm English.
John B and Sarah are, I don't want to sound like a loser for saying this, but they're adorable. I'll admit it.
Welcome back to another episode of Red and Red Real Reviews. So today we're covering season 3 already of Shrinking, and this is one we did last season, and that's on Apple TV. So before we get into it, let us know what you think of the podcast as a whole or a possible show we should cover by emailing us at redandredrealreviews@gmail.com and following us on Instagram as well, Red and Red Real Reviews, and that's the letter N and real spelled with 2 E's. So here's where we kind of left off in season 2. So we have Liz planning to be the nanny for Brian and Charlie's kid that's going to be born soon. Their surrogate or adoptive mother is still pregnant. Then there was a new relationship established between Jimmy and Lewis. And then Jimmy and Alice have kind of worked out their issues between father and daughter. So I don't know about you. I was a little disappointed that we only got one episode to start off with for this season. But to me, the silver lining was really that the one episode was a beefy one. I think the runtime was like an hour and 3 minutes or something like that. So it was a beefy episode where I feel like there was a decent amount that was set up, for the season ahead. So before you started watching that first episode of season 3, what were you kind of hoping to see kick off in the season?
Well, I think I recall seeing shots of Jimmy and Lewis during their promotional material, so I knew that was gonna kind of continue, and I'm kind of glad it did because that uh repair forgiveness type of arc, because that was really the only one that still had to be worked on. Alice had kind of forgiven Lewis and developed a
Right.
relationship with him, but Jimmy was still slow to come around. So that one, that was good to see that would continue. um and I was also surprised at the one episode, because this is coming off a hijack, which deviates from Apple's normal strategy. But given the fact that we're used to 30-minute episodes for the show,
Mm.
uh, it felt like it was 2 episodes instead of one because of the length.
Right. Yeah. And I know sometimes with the studio, I believe we got like the first episode was 45 minutes, and then the ones after that were 25 minutes or a half an hour. So sometimes they'll do that too. So I'm glad that they kind of hit it off with a bang. If they're going to give us one episode, at least it's a meaty one where they're just kind of setting the stage for what's going to happen in this season, all the different elements of what's going on with everyone in the gang, so to speak.
Yeah, and with the gang, I was honestly worried going into this season, because it felt like off of season 2, everything, or for all intents and purposes, everything had a nice little bow on it. So
Right.
I was really had a overbearing concern that eventually this show that has been so good would eventually start to have a stale feeling.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it a little bit later too, but I saw something the other day that this series, similar to Ted Lasso, which you have your lovely Ted Lasso shirt on today,
Woo.
for our listening audience, he's wearing the beautiful Ted Lasso shirt. But like Ted Lasso, this series was planned out to be just 3 seasons. So
Oh,
yeah, so seeing that after I watched this episode, I was like, that's interesting. So I wonder, how they're going to tie it up. And in the meantime, the show got renewed for a season 4 barely after the season 3 premiere had aired. So they kind of said, yeah, we did plan for 3 seasons, but we're going to do a season 4 kind of. Oh, well, at least it's more of a upfront decision than Ted Lasso was. I mean, some time went by and they were like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're working on a season 4." And we were like, "Huh, I thought you guys all cried and said goodbye and the series ended. So how is this coming back?" So I think they kind of maybe, this is also a Bill Lawrence show. I wonder if they kind of viewed that as a mistake, like, oh, maybe we were a little premature with ending Ted Lasso. Like, let's not do this here. Like, what can we do for, leaving it open for a season 4?
Yeah, and not have to walk it back some years later and say we're going to bring the show
Exactly.
back after a lengthy delay or lapse, I should say.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into our one things. So what was at the forefront of your mind for why people should watch season 3 of Shrinking?
I had a comical uh, uh, approach to this because, and I don't know how many people necessarily will relate to this, but I feel like I'm calling out Brett Goldstein a little bit, who's the writer of this show. Um,
Oh,
and I feel like he's maybe living in our heads or our DMs a little bit because there was too much going on across this episode to make me think or not make me think that he's some closet Red and Red Real Reviews fan.
interesting. Okay. So state your case. Why did you think that?
So we are both born and raised in Connecticut.
Yep.
Alice has this potential soccer scholarship to Wesleyan,
Mm-hmm.
which is centrally based in the state and close
Yep.
to our alma mater.
Mm-hmm.
Paul vocalizes to Sean at one point as they're kind of having a therapy session that he's got this dream of owning a sailboat in Connecticut. And Sean kind of looks at him very puzzled. And I'm thinking to myself, I feel like I've mentioned on the show before that my childhood was kind of a little adjacent to boating. So there's fact too. And then this one, which maybe might be a little bit of a tinfoil hat theory on my part, because we never publicly stated this on the show. But we've had an offline discussion about whether to pronounce the word coyote or coyote. And Jimmy and Lewis are sitting on the bench during one of their mending sessions, and
Yeah.
they have this argument of how to pronounce the word. And Lewis is saying coyote, and Jimmy is saying coyote. So at a certain point, again, might be the tinfoil hat theory, but I got to ask Brett Goldstein, are you watching or listening to Red and Red? Please let us know.
You know what? Furthermore, Brett Goldstein, are you following one or both of us? Because this wasn't the coyote thing wasn't an offline conversation. I did post that to my stories and I did a poll of how people pronounce the word because we were arguing over it. You were like, it's definitely coyote. And I was like, no, it's definitely coyote. And we were arguing about it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to settle this. I'm going to post a poll, see what people say. My response won out. So I mean, that kind of makes me wonder, is he creeping on our stories or something? Like, how I just feel like there's too many coincidences. How
Yeah,
many people debate over the correct pronunciation of words like coyote besides
yeah,
us?
yes. A debate over pronunciation of words like coyote.
Yeah, and like the fact that so they mentioned Connecticut once, and uh, Alice is talking about what life would be like if she did get accepted to Wesleyan and she got this scholarship or whatever. So first, the fact that they're talking about Connecticut is pretty rare because people don't really often discuss Connecticut. Like, yes, they'll discuss things in Connecticut. They'll refer to Yale, or like once in a while, they'll say, like, oh, yeah, Yale in New Haven, or something like that. If they're talking about Ivy Leagues, if they're talking about someone going to school there. But it's not often that they multiple times refer to Connecticut. So they were talking about Wesleyan. And then the fact that in the same episode, Paul is like, oh, I always dreamed of having a sailboat in Connecticut. Like, why not Rhode Island? You know what I'm saying? Like, why mention Connecticut in the same episode? It just seems crazy that, and I'm pretty sure, obviously, we don't have a live fact check here, but I'm pretty sure that Brett Goldstein is, if not a co-creator credited on the series, he is like, not to mention a writer. I'm pretty sure he may be like head writer, or like there is a little staff that he's like kind of towards the lead of. So yeah, it's like, what writer had Connecticut on the brain? Or like, did one of the writers go to Wesleyan or something? Is that why they're like carrying the torch for Connecticut in this episode?
especially for a Brit.
Yeah,
He's hardly a native New Englander or something.
right. It's got to be someone on his writing staff. You know, I can't imagine Jason Segel has any tie to Connecticut or anything like that. It's got to be one of the writers. Like the fact that they mention it multiple times, it's more than a coincidence. So you're right to question
Well,
Brett
and since you
Goldstein.
say that, I did just think of the fact that in How I Met Your Mother, which Jason Segel started, I think Ted and Marshall and Lily all also went to Wesleyan.
Really?
Yeah. So maybe I'm going down a rabbit hole I shouldn't be going down. But they all went to Wesleyan early on.
And now I might be just totally pulling this out of my ass, but isn't there correct me if I'm wrong, aren't isn't there another Wesleyan?
I think there's a few. Yeah.
Like there's a Wesleyan, I think, in like the Midwest in like Illinois, somewhere out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, there's
Illinois,
a few of
Indiana,
them.
somewhere.
There's a couple scattered around. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I know there's more than one.
Right. So that's why whenever someone mentions Wesleyan, like I'm kind of like taking it with a grain of salt because I'm like, oh, that's probably the one in the Midwest or whatever. But when they say Connecticut, I'm like, oh, that's the one in little old Middletown, which is
Yeah.
crazy because that's like the next big town over or the city over from my hometown where we would go because it was like 20 minutes away. It was like a 10-mile drive. Like that's where we went to the movie theater. That's where we went to get clothes. Like we didn't have a clothes store. We didn't have a shopping mall in my hometown. It was so small. So like we would have to travel at least 20 minutes to get anywhere to buy that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just funny that they're talking about this place that like I've frequented and like I've known about all my life. And like I've been mistaken for a Wesleyan student before, like going
I mean,
to businesses in Middletown, like they especially when I had glasses before I had LASIK done, they were like, they'd kind of look at me and be like, oh, do you get the Wesleyan discount? Are you a Wesleyan student? You know, if I'd go to places. So um yeah, pretty funny. Like that anyone could consider me going there because you have to be pretty. It is like a heavy artsy fartsy liberal arts college, but you do have to be quite smart to get in there and be considered. So
y- yeah, and Paul's daughter's been mentioned as far as that's where her family lives, but I feel like that's a easily forgotten tidbit about the show, whereas a very poignant moment between he and Sean in the premiere episode.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so enough about Connecticut and Connecticut things because we have all
Seriously.
these. We have our Brit and Aussie viewers and listeners who are like hashtag can't relate. So
Yeah.
um so getting to my one thing, the one thing I would say to watch for is just the future possibilities of our gang here. So we're kind of crossing our fingers, hoping that everyone's going to be happy stepping into this next phase, but we don't know what awaits ultimately for everyone. So the theme for me with this first episode that I think is going to be the theme of the season as a whole is like everyone moving on. So some things that we've seen a little bit of, but we'll probably see more of, I'm guessing. Obviously, we mentioned Alice looking at scholarships and her getting into college. So inevitably, she's in like her senior year. So she's going to be going to college. So how is Jimmy going to deal with that? That's his one kid. He's going to be an empty nester. Is is there going to be a future for him as a single guy? Like, is he ever going to date again? What's his life going to look like if Alice is in college and she's only coming back to visit every so often? How is Paul going to deal with his Parkinson's ultimately getting worse? What is Brian and Charlie's family going to look like if their child's mother is involved? And how does Liz fit into that dynamic as the nanny for their family? Gabby and Derek are pretty serious and things seem like they're going well. So, like, is this it for them? Is this end game? Yeah, as the kids say.
Yeah.
And then all that to say, there was a pretty nuts cliffhanger that kind of left my mouth agape, I'll say. So yeah, I mean, I'm wondering what's going to happen with everybody, and that's enough to make me want to watch, to be like, okay, where does this leave everybody?
Yeah, and to the point of moving on, it's interesting because that also incorporates Sean's food truck business. It
Mm,
also incorporates um, Jimmy kind of being able to rationalize his emotions about losing
mm.
Tina. So there's depth to this too, and that could kind of bleed into another season where you're like, oh no, there's like maybe season four will be too much of the same thing. This season will be fine. This writing was intended to be three seasons for a reason because this is supposed to be the season where everyone's good. Um, and but there's still like a warm and fuzzy feeling about the cast where it's one of those shows where I would really like to see this to be one of those shows that wins ensemble cast at the SAGs
Oh,
because
yes, yes.
they all you'd think with so much star power on the screen it would be too much oxygen in the room for everybody, and it's really not. They all kind of fit well together.
You know what? And it's unexpected too. The fact that, Gabby has this relationship with Paul, that's so like cute and nice to see. And then I love I'll probably forever say that Derek, Liz's husband, is one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character. I just find him absolutely hilarious.
You're probably the
Just
only person that says that. He's
that's
funny, but
not
I don't know.
no,
He is funny. He is funny, but I don't know about favorite.
no. People put in the comments if you're a Derek stan, because he's freaking hilarious. There's a moment with one of his shenanigans in that first episode. I won't spoil it because I like burst out laughing. I was like, this guy is so nuts, but he's so funny and I just love him. And then, not to mention, I mean, you have Harrison Ford as Paul, who is like this grumbly, like, oh, I hate everybody. Literally, he sounds like that. And then it just, but the way that he emotes, like when he's going through these difficult things, like it's enough to bring you to tears. And even the same thing with when Brett Goldstein and Jason Segel are on screen together, like those are two guys who play comedy so well, but yet they play drama so well too. It's just like again, enough to bring you to tears. Like just the way that they blend comedy and drama is amazing in this show, and it's not unlike Ted Lasso. So maybe it's something to that Bill Lawrence formula. I don't know what it is.
Well, and also to like Paul's arc as far as what's going to go on with him and Julie.
Yeah.
That their future as a couple, how that ties into Paul's health with the Parkinson's
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. So there's a lot of not just character dynamics, but also, like you said, what's going to go on in the future. Are people going to be okay? There's a lot of concern in that regard too.
Yeah, like health wise. And then not to mention Paul's daughter, she wants to be there and be supportive and be the one to see him through his health issues. But then you have Julie, who's an actual doctor, so she understands from that perspective. So, how is how is there going to be room for Paul's daughter if Julie is kind of, calling the shots potentially? So yeah, it's a lot of like dynamics changing of like families, and families are looking a little bit different, or going to look a little bit different. Charlie and Brian are adding someone to their family with potentially the mother of their child and their actual child. And then you have Jimmy going down to a family of one at some point when he's an empty nester. So yeah, there's just a lot up in the air, and that's what I think is going to make me want to watch, to see what happens.
Yeah. And the, so I do like the Derek dynamic and
Yeah,
how that's kind of a recurring joke. The funniest character to me though is Brian.
Brian is really funny. And you know what? I love that actor because he was on Ugly Betty, and he played kind of a bitchy guy in that show. But this show, I feel like he is very funny, but he's not as hard to love as he was in that show. Like he can be a little bit bitchy in this show, don't get me wrong, but there's something that's still endearing about him. And that's why I think people can relate to and love this show, is because all of the characters you're rooting for, they're likable people. They have faults, they have flaws, but they're not jerks who you're like, I don't give a shit what happens to them because I don't even like them. Like that's the problem with a lot of shows is if you can't like a character, you're not going to find yourself rooting for them.
No, you write them off. And like my
Mm-hmm.
favorites are, it's kind of a tie between Alice and Sean
Mm,
because of the way the both of them deal with trauma is an internalizing way. Like they kind of want to deal with it themselves. And Alice is kind of broken out of that a little bit.
mm.
Uh, and we kind of see that happen in this premiere episode where all of a sudden maybe she doesn't want to do that anymore. But Sean also still hasn't necessarily broken that mold in his respect because he kind of still has this I'm gonna go it alone mentality, and maybe that's built in from his character's background as military. So the dealing with the seeing the way the two of them deal with trauma is totally different from the way everyone else does. Paul and well, not so much Paul, but Jimmy, Gabby, Liz, like they're all more kind of like outward. They kind of all deal with it more outward, whereas Alice and Sean and even Paul to an extent deal with it more intrinsically.
Yeah, and you know what? I do have to say, I feel like somebody who's growing on me that I never really expected is Liz. I feel like, she can be kind of annoying because she's very overprotective. She's very like, I need to meddle with this thing, like, and just put in my 2 cents. And to borrow a phrase from the Goldberg show, they had a very overprotective mother, and they used to call her a smother, like my smother.
Smother.
Smother. So like she is a bit of a smother, but as you'll see in this first episode, it's she's not hard to love like Brian, because she's doing these things for a reason.
That sounds
As
like
what?
that's the thing. That sounds like Smucker's grape jelly. Smother.
Smother your sandwich with jelly. Yeah,
Yeah.
smother it with Smuckers. No product placement here.
No.
But yeah, she's actually doing it for a reason. There's more depth to her character, and I'm seeing that, and that's why I think she's growing on me. And yeah, so I'm just excited to see what happens with people, and I'm excited to ugly cry along the way, because I'm sure I will, and I'm sure I'll be laughing too.
Yeah, and the other thing with Liz is I would think because this is the type of thing that normally does get old and stale for me. It's her kind
Mm,
of bromance or galmance, whatever the feminine equivalent of the
yeah.
word is, between her and Gabby. I would think this would get so annoying, but the way the dialogue is written, it still comes off kind of snappy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I otherwise would probably roll my eyes, but it's still funny. Like they're still pushing that button and it's still funny in my opinion. So it's not a tired thing. I think it's still clever and like the way that they do it. Just I think it's the writing. It just you can credit it all to the writing.
Yeah.
Um, so speaking of the writing and all the things we've talked about so far, should people watch season 3 of Shrinking?
Like I said, I was very worried going into this that it was
Mm,
going to be one of those great shows that they just kind of try to do the same thing over and over and over again, and it gets tired. The characters hit their finale points, and nothing feels engaging after that.
mm,
It's just kind of like stringing the dead horse along.
right.
But it's not. Like
Mm,
I don't know how Brett Goldstein and his team are doing this, but this is the show that probably should be the flash of the pan. Like, a one season wonder or two tops just to
mm.
kind of close things up. But it just it doesn't have that feeling of those long-standing sitcoms of old that are just the same thing over and over and over again. Everything feels fresh despite being 3 seasons deep now.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I don't know how they have this perfect marriage of comedy and tugging on heartstrings, but they're extremely good at balancing it. And like I said, I don't know if it's a Bill Lawrence thing. I don't know if it's the kind of ship that he runs where it's just that's what the writing is, it's just a mix of comedy and a mix of really good drama and really good ensemble cast acting.
And it's funny to see the development of Bill Lawrence products from Scrubs, which is admittedly a show that went on way too long.
Yeah,
But that show also went on for like 7 or 8 seasons. So it's
right.
not remotely in the same ballpark as something like this, or even
Yeah.
something like Ted Lasso that's, 3, 4 seasons tops. So it's interesting to see, like, I don't know if it's something where writers and show creators can learn from past things. I'm like, okay, we kind of did something a little right with
Mm,
something like Scrubs, but we can refine it and turn it into something like Ted Lasso, which is very final, but people
mhm.
love it and demand more. And then something like Shrinking, which you think, oh boy, this is it. This is where it dies, but it just keeps going.
Yeah, and it's still got dignity and it's still great. So I'm just kind of wondering if they've already renewed it for season 4. Is season 4 going to be the last one? And what does that mean for the end of season 3? I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but how are they going to end it out so that it sets it up for a season 4 if that's going to be the end? I'm just curious to see where they take it or what they do with it. And I hope it's in I think it'll be in a clever way that does justice for these characters and for the situations that they're in.
Right, because eventually, like all shows, it will get stale. Or I should say, like all comedy shows, it will get stale. So just, I do hope that there is a sense of self-awareness with the team behind Shrinking that they kind of know, okay, it's good now. We can put it in a box.
Yeah. And that being said, we hope you don't put us in a box. So if you enjoy listening to our show, we would appreciate it if you gave us a 5-star review. Let us know what you think of each episode. Also, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button on any platform just so you know when new episodes release. Sometimes we're a little bit here and there just because of the days that these shows come out. So next up, this is exciting. We have a very, very old favorite of ours because it's what we launched the podcast with, and it's Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. So it's season 4 already, which is crazy. I mean, here we are in the season 3 of this podcast. So it's time has gone by, and we're so much more grown up than we used to be. But but we'll talk about whether Lincoln Lawyer is worth watching as it gets further on in its run. I don't know what the timeline for that show looks like. Is it going to run for season 5, season 6? Like, is it near its end? I mean, we don't really know. So, yeah. I mean, what are you kind of looking forward to with that one?
Time is a social construct. But I do love Mickey Haller, and what I like about that show is the fact that despite the continuity, each show more or less is an independent topic. So, like, it's not great to jump in the midpoint, but if
Right.
you did for whatever random reason, you wouldn't be totally lost as far as missing out on things.
Yeah, you probably could pick it up because each season is pretty much a case. I mean, I don't, they split one of the seasons that we covered, so I don't remember if that one would stand on its own, like as each part. I'm pretty sure it would just be the season would stand as one part. Um, but yeah, for the most part, you can watch one case per season for this show. So they've kept it in that format so far. So we'll see how they continue with it. So until the next real review, Red and Red signing out.